So we'll come to order. Leslie is not here today, so I'll be filling in and chairing this meeting. First order of business, will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson?
Present.
Oliver?
Here.
Ford?
Here.
Hagersmith is out. Mattingly?
Here.
Sutphen?
Here.
Watson?
Present.
And will the former vice mayor please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with the consent agenda tonight. On the consent agenda, we have first the approval of the town council minutes for June 18th. Ordinance 2058, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2024-2025 operating budget to accept and appropriate $232,335 of Community Conservation Program grant funds from the Virginia Environmental Endowment to the General Capital Improvement Funds. We'll introduce that ordinance tonight and schedule the public hearing for August 13th. We have a contract amendment for program management, owner, representative, professional services related to the multimodal transit facility, as well as a contract for professional architectural and engineering services for the multimodal transit facility. We'll approve both of those tonight. We also have a contract for demolition at 103 Wilson Avenue. The action on that is approval. Resolution 7A24, a resolution to authorize an additional police officer position in the approved pay plan. We'll be approving that tonight. And then ordinance 2059, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2024-2025 operating budget to accept and appropriate $54,000 of Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services grant funds to the general fund. We'll be introducing that ordinance and scheduling the public hearing for August 13th. What is council's pleasure on the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Oliver?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Mattingly?
Aye.
Sutphen?
Aye.
Watson?
Aye.
Anderson?
Aye.
The motion passes. We'll move on to public hearings. First up tonight is ordinance 2051, an ordinance to amend ordinance 1895, which rezoned 33.87 acres of land at 520 Patrick Henry Drive.
The O'Shea has the staff report.
Good evening. This property was rezoned from R4 to PR in 2019. The overall planned residential area totals just under 34 acres, but the development area is smaller. This image shows the entire 33-acre parcel, including the portion located outside the town limits in Montgomery County past the bold black line in the right. The 33-acre parcel is divided into 3 different areas. The town owns areas 1 and 3, which includes the county parcel, but the county parcel is not subject to this rezone. Area 1 includes the track and ball fields. Area 3 is largely wooded and undeveloped. The amendment request before you tonight pertains to the development area, which is Area 2. This was the map that was included in the application, shows the areas 1, 2, and 3, as well as the county portion. The development request entails the construction of 73 three-bedroom townhomes. The applicant will construct 2 public streets and private driveways within the development. The development also includes parks and passive open space. This was the application, the plan that was included in the application. The 2 public streets are those that are found on the far left and bottom of the screen. The interior streets and private alleys are private. The different colors on the different units indicate different unit types, and you can see that there are several different unit types and they have different floor plans. A major amendment to a PR requires the applicant to undergo the public hearing process again to amend the district. It was determined that the amendment request was significant enough to require a public hearing for a number of items that included the reduction of the number of units, layout and circulation changes, and architectural changes. The planned residential district has a number of district standards as seen on the screen and were found in the staff report. There are a number of architectural changes that are proposed, largely due to unit layout. The applicant desired to construct more units with primary bedrooms and bathrooms on the main floor. The previous planned residential was a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom units. As proposed, all units are 2-story, 3-bedroom units. You can see the architectural renderings as seen on the screen. It has varying different types of styles, including colonial and craftsman. The unit floor plans show that most units have a bonus room or attic storage areas or both. In order to mitigate possible occupancy issues, the applicant is proposing a reduced occupancy as a part of the development to mitigate potential lifestyle conflicts. There are several use and design standards that the applicant has requested modifications to for use of the townhomes. The first pertains to the maximum number of buildings in a row. The applicant requests up to 3 buildings in a row, which is greater than the standard of no more than 2. The applicant also requests an exception to allow parking in more than 1 yard of a townhome. As proposed, there are several end units in the interior of the development that are affected by this regulation. Lastly, the applicant requests a modification to allow less than 3 feet of facade variation, provided that there is a change in color or material for adjacent units. The applicant proposes 4 spaces per unit, 2 parking spaces in each garage, and 2 parking spaces in each driveway, with each unit being a 3-bedroom unit. This creates an effective parking ratio of 1.3 parking spaces per bedroom. There will also be some public parking available on the right-of-way of Price Street Extension. Both the planned residential development district and the townhome use and design standards require a minimum of 20% open space. As proposed, a minimum of 21% is proposed in the development area, though when accounting for the entire planned residential district, approximately 69% is open space. The application states the development will meet all town standards for landscaping. Applicable standards include street trees along public streets and overall canopy coverage of 10%. There's no buffer requirement for the planned residential district. Each application should be evaluated for its appropriateness with any respect to buffers or transitions. Signs are shown along the private drive where they intersect with public Price Street Extension. We also evaluate rezoning requests for their impact on public infrastructure. With respect to sanitary sewer, this model shows that there is not capacity for the entire development. The town is investigating several methods to free capacity in the sewer shed after the initial bids for construction of a CIP project came in over budget. The applicant will sign a sewer agreement letter that lays out how much capacity exists today, and the agreement may be modified if additional capacity is determined to be available. The decrease in density shows that the proposed development will have a lesser impact on the surrounding neighborhood with regards to traffic. No improvements are warranted or required. There are a number of proffers that were provided in the proffer statement, which was most recently received today, including substantial conformance with the application, that no 4-bedroom, 4-bath, or 3-bedroom, 3-bath, no 4-bedroom, 4-bath units will be constructed, but 3-bed, 3-bath units would be allowed. The maximum number of 73 dwelling units would be constructed on area number 2. The 4th proffer pertains to building materials. The 5th proffer pertains to homeowners association covenants and documents will be provided for area number 2. The 6th proffer pertains to the homes will become part of the HOA and lays out different items for rental or leasing of the units. The 7th proffer pertains to rooftop solar being allowed on the units, and the final proffer regards an agreement between the town and the developer for the construction and installation of improvements on the town-owned properties. Planning Commission recommended approval of a vote of 5-2 with 2 absent. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have of staff.
Any questions?
I do have one for clarification.
Certainly.
This is amending a previous rezoning, so if we did not approve it, it would go back to the original more dense zoning. It doesn't go back to its...
That's correct. It goes back to the planned residential
planned
that
residential.
was previously approved.
Okay.
I have one quick question. What was the date of the latest proffer statement?
The latest proffer statement was to...
July 2nd.
Good, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have an applicant statement tonight?
Council, Steve Simonis with Balzer and Associates. I won't get into a lot of detail this evening. Kinsey, as always, did a great job. Mark?
Pull yours up.
Yeah, or maybe just the master plan from Kinsey's would be fine.
Okay.
As we talked about in our work session a couple weeks ago, the main reason we're back in front of you 5 years later is to provide a different housing type than what was approved originally. Primarily, as Kinsey mentioned, to have a primary bedroom and bathroom on that main level to try to hit, an aging in place and just master on the main that we always talk about in a lot of our rezonings as being lacking in town. So what that did is that required our footprints to get bigger, which thus reduced the overall number of units on the property itself. So we're a little over 25% less units overall than what was originally approved, and around 30%, 319 down to 219 overall bedrooms. With our initial application, we had our neighborhood meeting. There was a lot of our neighbors from the surrounding neighborhoods were there. The biggest thing that they had, one of the biggest things that we talked about was one of the proffers that was not included in our initial application. That was part of the incentive. It was proffer number one. That was to help incentivize more owner occupancy and de-incentivize rentals or unoccupied or owner occupied units. We added that back in there along with about another 12 or 13 items that staff came up with during their staff review of the document itself. We presented that to Planning Commission. We did add one additional proffer that Kinsey mentioned that came from the town attorney, which was number 8. That's really to help clarify how the project would move forward and improvements that we would do on town-owned properties, such as Grove Park, the new park that we provided in the back. We do feel that this is a step up and a better project than what was approved before. As we said, it's a different unit type. It's less density, less traffic. We've pulled the overall project on the south side further away from our neighbors there on Elliott Drive. We've got good sidewalk connections, trail connections, a new multi-use trail that goes along the north side of the Grove Avenue, paper right-of-way that extends back to the park. So we feel really good about the project. We were happy with Planning Commission's recommendation of 5-2. And I did want to answer a couple of the questions or a couple of the items that Mr. Ford brought up at our work session. There were 3 questions that were brought up. One was, will the HOA maintain the exteriors of all the buildings? That is a yes, they will be. So any of the siding, window replacement, things like that would be done as part of the HOA, as well as all the other exterior maintenance for mowing, plowing snow, keeping the sidewalks clean internal to the property. Second question was, will the HOA have a regulation in place that residents must keep their trash and recycling cans inside the garage except on trash day? That will be included in the HOA documents as well. And then the third one was a question about zero entry units. So those are really the units that you could, if you all remember, we talked about that at a couple of our habitat projects we've worked on. So that's really, a zero entry, no steps or thresholds to get in. We do intend to have a certain percentage of our units. We don't know that exact percentage. We'd like to shoot for about 20% of the units to have that zero entry, but that'll be determined based on our final grading. But we do have that plan in place to get some of those units. And Ian Friend also wanted me to mention that we do have some of these units designed where they will be able to be put in with larger doorways, larger radiuses for wheelchair access should that be necessary. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Now we will open it up to public comment. Anyone with comments about Ordinance 2051, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and limit your speaking time to 3 minutes.
Patrice Hart-Schubert, 906 Elliott Drive. It's no small thing that this amendment to the application finally brings the density of this planned residential development down to a number that is actually in line with the by right development. So that's a big win. However, that was not the only notable physical change from the 2019 approved rezoning. As Kinsey put up earlier, there was a list of a number of things that made it qualify. And one of those that's considered a major revision was architectural changes. I have noted 3 areas in which this major revision should raise a concern for approval of the amendment. Number 1, the applicant proposes American colonial and craftsman style buildings. And then in the town staff report of May, it is stated that the 2 styles don't contain similar unifying elements and might not look as like a cohesive neighborhood if both styles are utilized. Number 2 is the town's zoning ordinance for the planned residential district. It not only allows greater flexibility for the developer, but, it's a direct quote, it is meant to encourage ingenuity, imagination, and high-quality design to create a superior living environment for the residents of the planned community. And lastly, while it was noted in the Town Council's packet that the Planning Commission recommended approval of the project, what is absent from the packet are the concerns raised during the Commission's discussion. Most notably is that the qualitative aspect of the current architectural design is a key concern for at least one member of the Planning Commission. I respectfully ask the town to consider these qualitative issues. This is no less important than the more palatable aspects which have been presented here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Dr. Vinesher. During the 2019 Town Council hearing, 7 people spoke, providing their views on the proposed development. 5 of those opposed the development, commenting on issues such as high density, traffic, sewer capacity, stormwater, etc. In my opposition to that PRD proposal, I commented on the proffers, analyzed them. Although some of those issues are either addressed or at least partially addressed in the current ordinance, others are still of concern. Then I said, although the 4-bedroom units are desirable for student housing, under current situations, any type of housing is a student housing candidate. The same is true today. Now I say reducing the number of bedrooms or locating the master bedrooms to the first floor or similar modifications do not prevent student housing, especially when we see a house in Fiddler's Green becomes a student housing unit. Then I commented on the project stormwater quality and quantity. Today, the same concerns are still valid. I believe that the developer must address the quality of the stormwater on site rather than purchasing any nutrient credits. With regards to the quantity, the developer needs to build a detention pond on the property. The excuse for not doing so is that the proposed development will have less impervious areas compared to what was present in the past. This is a flawed argument, since the high school development predated the recent stormwater regulations. I am interested in hearing the staff's comment on that subject. These are important since we experienced downstream flooding and the Struggles Creek impairment. I was, and still am, amazed with the town's lack of sensitivity towards these important environmental issues. Please reject Ordinance 2051 as presented.
Thank you.
Howdy, folks. Ranald Adams, 129 Lucas Drive. I'm happy to see that we are building some housing. Some is better than none. I do have some misgivings about this ordinance as presented. I think that the reduction in density is a mistake in a town with a housing crisis. Moreover, I have grave concerns about discussions surrounding HOA ordinance or HOA regulations. Specifically, I think that it is unwise to disincentivize rentals in a town where the the population of people who use rentals is under severe pressure. Service workers especially are being pushed further and further from the town, incurring transportation costs that are not sustainable. Trying to keep renters out is a mistake, and I urge you to not pass this ordinance.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi there, Jillian Krinsky, 421 Lee Street. So I wanted to kind of follow that a little bit. Two things that I was kind of wondering. You mentioned areas 1 and 3 in the proposal had open space with 69%, but since you're only developing the area 2, which had like 21%, I'm kind of wondering how that would relate to the proposal since you can't even development. And the sewer, I saw that the sewer, it wasn't able to handle any more development. That was one of the prime reasons it went down. So I'm kind of seeing if you want to kind of claim that as part of the open space, you should have a plan to develop it. And if you can't handle it, then kind of use that in the proposal. I definitely also had concerns about the HOA and some covenants overall. I know a lot of coworkers I work with, especially who work in Blacksburg, who pay taxes in Blacksburg, are having trouble kind of keeping their own housing here. If you guys want to prioritize housing, that's great, and want to promote home ownership, that's also great. But you have to see who's in your town, and if the town, and you're trying to keep people in here, making these ownership-only homes when the path to home ownership, especially as a younger age, is so hard, that might be hard. So I just wanted to kind of give that to you. Another thing is no matter what, students will live here no matter what. I know you guys probably don't wish that, but if you make home ownership only for that area, I think that'll push students into the other neighborhoods. So if you want to develop something new, I think making it more acceptable for people renting. The HOA, I know we're all very concerned about the house facade and setbacks, but maybe we can think about, I have no stake in that, I guess, but maybe you guys can think about just how that would come off to people who are still struggling to get home ownership in the town. So that's all. Just like to say that.
Anyone else? We're still in public comments. Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public comments. Do we have an applicant rebuttal?
If the council would like me to address anything that we heard, I'm happy to.
Any additional questions for Steve? Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on to action. What's council's pleasure on ordinance 2051?
I move approval of ordinance 2051. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have a couple thoughts I'd like to add. I think Randall and Jillian kind of hit that nail on the head. As we talk about concerns of students moving into existing neighborhoods or into new neighborhoods we build, I think the best way to mitigate these neighborhoods becoming student housing is for us to build purpose-built student housing. So I think that's something to tuck away in our back pocket as we consider future developments. Since the choice we're faced with is really whether or not we move forward with the current PR or accept this rezoning, I think about it in terms of the price of the homes that are being built and the quantity of the homes being built. And so remaining with the current PR, we have more homes at a lower price point. If we pass this rezoning, we have fewer homes at a higher price point. And at a time when I think we all agree that Blacksburg's experiencing a housing emergency, a housing shortage, it seems foolish to me when we have an opportunity to accept what turns out to be, is it 100 bedrooms, Steve? 219, but 319 in the current PR. Yes, we'd lose 100 bedrooms with this rezoning. It seems foolish at a time when we really are struggling with the cost of housing and the availability of housing in our community.
I hear you, and I appreciate the comments from the folks that spoke this evening, and I understand that being in a college town, it is a real big struggle with the lifestyle conflicts of, undergrad students living in neighborhoods and trying to make all that work. And I agree we need more. We obviously are in a housing shortage, but we are in a housing shortage of all types. And the idea of having units that have, bed, bath on the main floor, that are ADA accessible, we have so many people looking for homes that want to downsize, that I for that reason, I'm in support of this, but I agree we do need more housing in general. So hopefully we'll see more opportunities.
I want to agree that we do need more housing, but we have some of our planning people here. In the last 3 or 4 years, what is the volume, if you can remember, of purpose-built student housing that we've approved in the last, say, 4 years?
3,000 beds?
In the thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah,
Of
in the
beds.
thousands of, so we are making efforts to alleviate this housing shortage, and in the last couple of years, we have invested a lot of money into affordable housing. So I do agree that that is a problem that we need to address, but that is not the only housing shortfall that we have, that we do have some diverse housing needs, and this will go a long way to address some of those other housing needs. So I'm going to vote in favor.
I'm the liaison on the Planning Commission, so I supported it at the Planning Commission, and I intend to support it tonight. The fact that this proposal brings it in line with our comprehensive plan, brings it down to the future land use, is important to me with the comp plan. And the occupancy change is the best hope for housing for young families, empty nesters. And I appreciate the answers to the questions you provided tonight, so thank you. Speaking of the comp plan, I do also want to point out that in the past year, we added a chapter to our comp plan that specifically addresses student housing. There's a map that lays out where we believe the best places are for student housing. And the one key takeaway is we believe the best place for student housing is on campus, followed by our map of the town adjacent areas. So housing is important. As my colleagues say, we spent a lot of time and money to try to support affordable housing. Some of the efforts that are going forward are to create more affordable housing, which is different than workforce housing. So I just wanted to bring up those key points. Thank you.
I've lived in Blacksburg since 1980 and in the home that my husband and I own since 1990. And people in my neighborhood have to move out of town because homes in my neighborhood are tall, narrow stairs, and if you get to the point where you're not very mobile, there isn't housing for them in Blacksburg. And they love Blacksburg and want to live here. And there's nothing wrong with Christiansburg, but they'd really rather live in Blacksburg because that's where all their friends are, many of their friends are, and the things that they do. This housing that we may approve tonight will take care of some of those people, not all of them, but some of them. And I agree, we have put a lot of priority in the last few years on student housing, and we've had to. Student population at Tech, undergraduate student population grew by over 5,000. We needed more bids in town, and Tech has not been good enough to give us all those beds. And we are doing a whole lot for affordable housing. It's hard to see it if you're a student or a young family. I'd be happy to talk with you more tonight after the meeting, but we are putting $4 million in ARPA funds, American Rescue Plan Act, into affordable housing. We've got that money going into 3 different developments that are going to have at least part of that development affordable housing. We're doing a community land trust. Not only in Blacksburg, we're doing a regional land trust or housing trust fund with our neighbors. We're doing a housing trust fund besides the community land trust. There's a lot going on that's you're not going to see the outcome next week, but over the next few years, we are going to have more affordable housing. And it has been a long slug, and we're not there yet. We do need all types of housing. This isn't the answer to all of them, but it's an answer to some little bit of one type. So I will vote for it.
Yeah, so I'm in agreement with my colleagues up here. I'll just add that this is a very important piece of land to the town of Blacksburg. It's a former school site. So there's a lot of community interest. It's a part of our collective memory in Blacksburg, so people have a lot of vested interest in not just the neighbors, but the whole community, and making sure that we do right by the community and have a good development on it. So kind of looking back, so this is a zoning amendment for the middle portion of the property. The town has plans for recreation space in the front portion of the property. The back portion the town owns as well, and will have outdoor areas and trails and that sort of thing. So it helps meet some housing needs that we have in the town of Blacksburg that others have talked about. It does reduce the density and address kind of architectural changes. I think it strikes a balance, this proposal that's in front of us, with the occupancy, allowing families and unrelated individuals to live in the community, but not setting the standard at such a rate that it would lead to more kind of aggressive lifestyle conflicts that we've seen in some of other neighborhoods. It does address parking and open space types of requirements, as we saw from the staff presentation. So I did support the original rezoning that happened in 2019, and I think that this is an improvement, so I'm in support of this as well. So if there's no additional comments, we'll go ahead and do a vote. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ford,
Aye.
Mattingly,
Aye.
Sutphen,
Aye.
Watson,
Nay.
Anderson,
Aye.
Oliver.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-1. We'll move on to ordinance 2054, an ordinance to repeal Town Code Section 18407 through 18417 pertaining to industrial cost recovery charges.
Larry Spencer has the staff report.
The short answer is we're repealing a section of the town code as it relates to sewers that is outdated. As a little background, it relates to industrial cost recovery program that was set up by the federal government in 1972, and what it required industrial users to pay the charges to local governments or municipal sewer plant operators to reimburse the federal government's share of construction costs. So that was 1972, and the program was repealed on December 27, 1977. So 47 years later, we are repealing our regulations that dealt with that program. We're sure it's not going to come back.
That's the staff presentation. Any questions for Larry?
Sure we've waited long enough to repeal it? Or let it sit for a little while? Okay.
Yeah. I appreciate the cautiousness.
We'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Anyone wanting to speak on ordinance 2054, come to the podium. Limit your speaking time to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. What is council's pleasure on ordinance 2054?
I move approval of ordinance 2054.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any council discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mattingly,
Aye.
Sutphen,
Aye.
Watson,
Aye.
Aye.
Oliver,
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Moving on to ordinance 2055, an ordinance vacating a portion of public right-of-way located at Progress Street. We'll start with the staff presentation.
Holly Casper has the staff report.
Good evening. Okay, this is a request for the vacation of some right-of-way along Progress Street that is currently unbuilt. It's at the end of Progress Street. It's about 114,000 square feet of right-of-way. It's currently vacant and undeveloped. A little bit of background about this. It is related to a previous subdivision that was completed in 2023. It was a revised subdivision plat for Northside Park, a future section, section 12. It revised the lot layout to a 55 lot layout, which does include this relocation of the unbuilt Progress Street. That plat was approved by Planning Commission in June 2023. And this request can be also looked at as kind of an exchange here, where there is also, it includes the dedication of about 138,000 square feet. So it's relocating the unbuilt right-of-way to a new location. For existing conditions, there is an asphalt trail that runs alongside the right-of-way here. There is mixed vegetation, and as I mentioned, it is an unbuilt street. There are also utilities in the vicinity. If I had a slide, I'd show you an aerial image of the right-of-way. Again, it is located at the end of the built right-of-way of Progress Street, and it is for a section of Northside Park.
can pick up here. This is an exhibit that does show the existing right-of-way, as well as existing easements on the site. You can kind of see it running through the middle of the large parcel there. And this item, this exhibit shows the proposed right-of-way location, as well as the proposed easements. The trail runs along the plan south here and does show relocation of that as well. And then this third image, it's a little hard to tell, but it does in fact show both the existing and the proposed locations. This slide covers the vacation criteria for alleys and unbuilt right-of-ways. This is from the comprehensive plan. I won't cover the criteria in detail, but I will cover the findings. The criteria were included in your staff report as well. In looking at our findings, we do see that the relocation will maintain the future transportation connection that was envisioned in the comprehensive plan. Again, because it's just a relocation, it still does maintain those connection points. The existing asphalt trail will be relocated as part of this, so it will still be in conformity with the Paths to the Future map in the comprehensive plan. The dedication of new right-of-way serves the same purpose as the existing right-of-way, or it will in the future when the roadway is built. And we find for this one that no payment is needed, as the area that's to be dedicated is greater than the area that's being vacated. So in other vacations, you might have seen a payment because we would be giving up town property, but in this case, we'll gain more than we will lose. With respect to utilities and easements, there is an existing public water line that serves the pump station in this area. Staff does recommend a condition that requires the new water line be installed, approved, and active prior to vacating the access easement for it. We also found that the preliminary calculations show that stormwater facilities will be able to treat future stormwater for Progress Street when it is built. And there were several staff recommended conditions related to the temporary access road, and those were included in detail in the staff report. We also look at the trail. As I mentioned, the trail is currently in use along the existing right-of-way. Staff does recommend a condition here that the relocated trail be constructed prior to the demolition of the existing trail so it can remain in use. A neighborhood meeting was held on May 8th. The notes and sign-in sheets were provided as part of the staff report. Planning Commission also reviewed this on June 4th. They recommended approval with the conditions in a vote of 7-0. For the conditions, the first condition generally covers that the dedication occur of the new right-of-way before vacation of the existing right-of-way. The second one covers the water line, as previously mentioned, and access to the pump station. The third and fourth both cover existing conditions and maintaining access to, or the temporary access road through the site. That was 3 and 4. Number 5 includes some information about temporary use of the right-of-way. That'll be important for the administrative plat process. And the 6th, again, ensures that the new trail is constructed before the demolition of the existing trail. That concludes my staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions?
I'd like to say my dogs and I appreciate that the new trail will be put in before the other one is taken out.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the staff presentation and Planning Commission recommendation. We'll now open it up for public comment. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak about Ordinance 2055?
I'm very concerned about a couple of wetland and perennial streams on that property. I appreciate if you please encourage the developers to preserve them in natural form as water features rather than buying wetland credit. I mean, Army Corps of Engineers would be happy to help.
Thank you.
Steve Simoes, Balzer and Associates again. We're the engineer of record for the project. Just a couple things to Javad's question. We will have our wetland specialist out there on site when we start the construction plans of this, so we will take a look at any environmental potential environmental impacts, and if there are any, they would certainly either be avoided or we'd have to mitigate them by DEQ and Corps of Engineers requirements. The reason we're here tonight, the original road layout that was done with this subdivision previously didn't leave enough room for stormwater management. It was really tough on grading. So that's one of the reasons, those are the two main reasons, I guess, that we came back and wanted to relook at the layout of this property. So this one will give us plenty of room for stormwater management areas based on the current regulations. The grading of the lots will be a lot easier and better for the builders to build in as well. And just to be sure, our applicant is 100% behind all the conditions that were listed by staff.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? We'll go ahead and close public comment. What is council's pleasure on ordinance 2055?
I move approval of ordinance 2055.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any council discussion?
That approval includes the staff recommended conditions?
They're included in the ordinance.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Sutphen,
Aye.
Watson,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Oliver,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Mattingly.
Aye.
The motion passes. We'll now move on to citizens' comments section. This is the portion of the meeting where you can come and speak about any matter of interest to the town. Just like the public hearings that we just had, please limit your speaking time to 3 minutes. State your name and address. Anyone wishing to speak during citizen comments?
We left off on slide 12 last time. And while you pull it up, I just wanted to apologize for last time, my passion for clean water and my anxiety when it comes to public.
Did you resubmit your PowerPoint
Yes. Oh, I thought, yeah. Did I?
before this meeting? Because I don't have one loaded.
Oh, it's just the one from last time.
I don't have it.
Oh, do you need me to, or can I send it right now? Okay. I'm sorry, I was sick the last time and I thought I told you guys I was coming for this one. Okay, I guess I'll just come back then. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during citizen comments? It looks like you want to speak.
Ranald Adams, 129 Lucas. I gotta say I'm kind of disappointed, not necessarily with the specifics of the ordinance which y'all passed, but with the sort of sense I got of sort of self-congratulatory remarks about the progress made on housing so far in Blacksburg, when it seems evident to me that the problem is getting worse and that at least the town government needs to be more aggressive because the university will probably not be a helpful partner, right? And I'd like to see a bit more ambition in the types of housing policy choices being presented. Things like significant rezoning in downtown. There shouldn't be single-family residential 2 blocks away from the busiest stretch of the town. There shouldn't. There just shouldn't. And it seems sometimes that we're playing a game of reverse musical chairs, where the chairs remain the same, but the number of players keeps on increasing. And the choices we're making to address it amount to the town trying to find ways to pick which players get a chair. And I think that's an unacceptable way to run our housing policy. Thank you.
Thank you. We're still in citizen comments. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi, my name is Oliver Shuey. I'm also at 129 Lucas Drive. And I just want to say I agree with everything that Reynold said. And I also want to point out that I used to live in a development in Blacksburg that had an HOA because students will live in any of the developments that will be built regardless of what the intended sort of use for that housing development is. Virginia Tech does not care to increase their housing right now. They've been very adamant that the town is going to be responsible for that, and it seems like the town is very adamant that Virginia Tech should be responsible for that. So I don't see how that sort of mismatch in priorities can sort of get us over this hump where there is a serious housing problem. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? We will go ahead and close citizen comments. Unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business? What about new business? Council announcements.
Art at the Market is Saturday, and in addition to seeing the work of a lot of local artists, the town's signal box project will also be on display. So come on down and check it out. It's also breakfast at the farmers market, so you get breakfast and art in one Saturday downtown.
We still have 2 Friday night outdoor concerts left, July 12th and July 19th. And to remind everyone, that's 6 to 7:30 p.m. out on Henderson Lawn on those Fridays, and they're free. We've got live theater going on. We've got the Thursday night indoor concert series going on. We've got one last classic movie at the Lyric under this program, and that is Forrest Gump on July 27th. And that's again at the Lyric, free, 3 p.m. Lots of things going on downtown, including the farmers market every Wednesday and Saturday.
I'm stepping out before we meet again.
Oh my gosh, yes. Stepping Out is always the first Friday and Saturday of August, about 10 in the morning until 10 at night.
That's about it, yeah.
They, I think, doubled the number of T-shirts that were bought, so everyone who comes to that booth hopefully will get the size they want and the color they want this year.
I bring good news from the distant land of Christiansburg, where the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors last night voted to permit an early voting location inside the town of Blacksburg, which is wonderful news for our citizens who might be of limited mobility. So hopefully that will encourage more folks to get out and vote this year. I believe they've scheduled it for at least 2 weeks prior to the end of early voting that they'll begin here in Blacksburg. So
Did they
wonderful
say
news. Yeah, the Blacksburg Community Center. So thank you to our counterparts on the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors who voted for this and for the people who showed up to help advocate for it.
Very cool. Any other announcements? With that, we are adjourned. Our next 2 meetings, I will let everyone know, July 16th and July 23rd are canceled. So our next regular meeting is a work session on August 16th, and our next regular night meeting is August 13th. So thank you all.